You're listening to Nereid Atlas, where international news gets unpacked a little more carefully. I'm Lukas. Over the last few days, US forces carried out airstrikes inside Iraq, hitting sites tied to armed groups with links to Iran. Washington described them as precision strikes to deter further attacks on its personnel. Baghdad condemned them as a breach of sovereignty, saying some of those hit were members of the Popular Mobilization Forces, units that sit inside Iraq's state security structure. This matters because it sits right between counterattack and overreach. Iraq's authority over its own forces, the future of foreign troops there, and the risk of a broader spillover. If you first hear this as action against Iran-linked militias, or as bombs falling on Iraq's popular mobilization, the same event lands very differently. For this one, we went through 16 articles from 14 outlets across 11 countries, state media and independent press, TV networks, newspapers, news agencies, and online, in English, French, and Spanish, all from July 28th to 30th. The picture shifts when you line them up. Elena's been tracing that. Elena? Nereid Atlas. Synthetic voices. Real analysis.
Two people read the same late-night reports and walk into work this morning certain of opposite things. One says, measured deterrence. The other says, a foreign military just bombed part of the Iraqi state. That split is the story.
Same flashes in the sky. Totally different conclusions. What's the hinge?
The nouns. In one narrative, the targets are Iran-linked militias tied to hostile activity. In the other, they're popular mobilization units, formerly folded into Iraq's security structure after the ISIS war. Change the noun, change the moral.
So it's not just the what, it's the who are they exactly?
And the verbs. One frame says precision strikes to degrade capabilities. The other says violated sovereignty, hit state forces. If you mostly encounter the first set, you're primed to hear self-defense and calibration. If you mostly see the second, you're primed to hear humiliation and escalation.
Reasonable person test. If I only read coverage stressing deterrence, I might assume there were prior attacks or imminent threats that needed stopping.
Exactly. You'd likely picture intelligence charts, risk mitigation, the minimum necessary force. The emphasis is on protecting lives by acting first.
And if I only read coverage stressing sovereignty, I walk away thinking a foreign power crossed a border to bomb units the state recognizes. So who's in charge of the country?
Right. It lands as an affront, even if you don't like those units. For many, we decide who polices our territory is the red line.
There's also the memory piece, isn't there? For some Iraqis, those units fought ISIS house to house. For others, they're seen as armed factions with outside patrons.
And both memories exist at once. The framing that foregrounds the ISIS fight invites gratitude and legitimacy. The framing that foregrounds outside patronage invites suspicion and blame. Neither requires bad faith to believe, just different starting points.
What gets left out in each version?
In the deterrence frame, local politics goes missing. Parliament, chain of command, the tangle of ministries. It can sound like empty space onto which threats are projected. In the sovereignty frame, the risk calculus gets blurry. If you remove the possibility of preempting attacks, you're implying absorbing them is acceptable. That omission makes restraint feel costless.
So two decent people can disagree because their mental picture was built from different absences.
Exactly. What's absent is doing more work than what's present.
There's also the regional angle. If your feed highlights broader partners joining in, it reads like a coalition drawing lines. If your feed emphasizes outside militaries operating over Iraqi cities, it reads like entanglement pulling the country under.
And the same flight path becomes either reassurance or intrusion. The listener doesn't have to be naive or partisan to land on one of those.
It's strange. Both narratives present themselves as the adult one. We're preventing a wider war versus we're protecting state order.
When both sides claim adulthood, the rest of us are left deciding which kind of responsibility we fear shirking. Protecting people from attacks that might come, or protecting a boundary that, once crossed, is hard to redraw.
And that choice isn't abstract for the people living under those boundaries.
No, it isn't. And that's where the next split shows up. Who is imagined as protected and who is imagined as endangered?
Walk me through that. Protected versus endangered. How does each frame cast the human side?
In the deterrence framing, the protected are soldiers in bases, drivers on highways, families near sites allegedly used for staging. The endangered are civilians if threats go unchecked. Authority figures, military briefers, officials, are positioned as credible narrators with access to intelligence.
So you trust the people with the radar screens?
Yes. And in the sovereignty framing, the protected are citizens who want decisions about force made in Baghdad, not elsewhere. The endangered are neighborhoods near compounds that might be hit, and the principle of national control. Here, the credible narrators are local officials and residents saying, decisions about us must include us.
Two different circles of trust, classified briefings versus lived authority.
Put that on a mug, but it's true. And the emotional currents follow. Reassurance when you hear measured, anger when you hear incursion.
What about responsibility? Who's blameworthy in each script?
In the first, blame flows to armed groups. By acting, they forced a response. The strike is cast as consequence management. In the second, blame flows to the striking states. They escalated by choosing force outside a bilateral process. Each side presents itself as reacting, not initiating.
That we only reacted symmetry makes it hard to find a stable ground truth.
And it makes it easy for a reasonable person to pick the reaction that feels safer. If your life experience says threats grow when ignored, the preemption story feels sane. If your life experience says foreign force corrodes institutions, the sovereignty story feels sane.
Incentives matter too. Governments want to show resolve. Local authorities want to show they're not bypassed. Armed factions, however you name them, want to show they can't be deterred cheaply.
And media incentives rhyme with that. Drama favors clarity. Precision versus violation are clean headlines. The middle, the messy mix of local law, chain of command memos, and community fear, doesn't trend.
Imagine two colleagues arguing at lunch. One thinks last night prevented a worse morning. The other thinks last night guaranteed a worse month.
And they're both trying to keep someone safe. They just picture different someones.
Is there a reconciliation path? A way these frames can meet without making one side feel naive?
Sometimes it's procedural. Transparent channels that let the state own the response, even if partners participate. Sometimes it's temporal. Prove over time that precision really means fewer funerals, not more. But reconciliation fails when each frame treats the other as bad faith, instead of different risk math.
Different risk math is such a sober phrase for what people actually feel. Fear, insult, duty.
Which is why a headline can tilt a whole morning. Read Deterrence and you breathe differently than if you read Incursion.
And both can be true to someone's day.
The uncomfortable part is this. When narratives harden into separate realities, accountability has nowhere to land. If every strike is either necessary or illegitimate by definition, we stop asking whether it was wise.
And wisdom is the only thing that isn't guaranteed by either frame.
That's the part I can't shake. We're arguing about names while the consequences, who sleeps, who buries, who decides, arrive either way.